Hey, what's happening, everyone? I'm Helen Herimbi. This is The Watch. South Africa is now in its third week of lockdown, and it's interesting because it would have been our final week in the initial 21 days. But President Cyril Ramaphosa has announced that we need to be in lockdown for another 2 weeks. But we're hanging in there, and we are still looking out for one another. But I have been wondering if our fellow South Africans who are now based abroad are feeling a little bit homesick during this pandemic. So today we're going to be catching up with Stembile Gasa, who is a former journalist and now an English teacher in Korea. We'll also be catching up with Kutlwano's Kosana Richie, who is a creative industries entrepreneur, as well as Miguel Bertuse, who is a lawyer in Italy. Awesome. So today I am joined by Kutlwano in Denmark, Miguel in Italy, and Stembile in South Korea. How are you guys doing?
Good. I am doing well.
Yeah. I
Lockdown. We are
it's
locked
tough
down.
to be in lockdown. And I was so jealous because Taya was saying she's just come back from work, and some of us can't even leave the house.
Yeah. We are coming out. We are slowly coming out of it. So things are starting to get a bit back to normal. I've been going to work actually.
Lucky you.
Yeah.
So just to start from the beginning, all of you are in some shape or form South Africans living abroad. And Miguel, you lived in South Africa for quite some time, right? About 15 years?
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So do you consider yourself South African living abroad?
Yes, definitely, yes. My friends here, my Italian friends, are fed up with my South African stories because whenever we go out and we dine together, when we used to go out and dine together and go to pubs and everything, every single time I start talking about South Africa. So definitely, I got South Africa in my heart and in my blood. Definitely. Yes.
Yeah. So maybe I'll start with you, Kutlwano. What was the reason you decided to leave South Africa? We miss you. Come back.
It's in the plan. But,
Why did you decide to leave?
well, first I came to Denmark to study. I took my studies at the Copenhagen Business School, which is where, of course, I met my husband. So I'm one of those love refugees. I did try to bring him back home. We were in Cape Town for a short while, but the paperwork was so ridiculous for him. And I also had my paperwork in Denmark. So we just decided to come back here and make a life. But it's in the plan. He misses South Africa. He's pushing. He's the one, driving.
Yeah.
He knows it's the good life, and actually in 2-3 years, we'll probably be heading back.
Nice.
Yeah.
Stembile, why did you decide to leave us?
I haven't left. I just slipped out for a little bit. So I've been in Korea for about a year teaching English. Just after years of working in the SA media, I just felt like I needed a change of pace, a change of life, a change of experience. So last year I made the move and I've been here. Yeah, it's my first year this year. It's just been a year and a month or so.
Yeah.
I haven't left SA to say actually. Yeah.
Miguel, what led you back to Italy?
Well, my family had moved down to South Africa for my father doing business in Mozambique. He's still there. And I had an older sister. She had moved back to Europe before me. And I chose to do university here and then evaluate whether to go back to South Africa. And you know how things go. You get back to one country, you finish university here. I'm a lawyer, so I had to do my apprenticeship with Italian courts. Unfortunately, Italian law degree, you cannot use it that much abroad. And so I stayed here. So I stayed here dreaming about Africa. I didn't think that, I never thought that African, in Italian we say mal d'Africa, which is Africa sickness, as in being homesick from Africa, right? And Africa leaves you this nostalgia inside, and that's actually what's left inside of me. So basically, I feel this nostalgia about South Africa, about Africa, and
Yeah.
about the rains in South Africa. That
Yeah.
in summer when it gets all black, the sky gets black and just pours rain for half an hour, 1 hour.
Yeah, no, I
That's
hate.
oh, that's the thing that I miss the most. I have to say, the thing
Yeah.
I miss the most is that.
But we find ourselves in this awkward position now where we are dealing with a global pandemic. Initially, I think Asia was getting the bad rap, like, this thing is happening over there. Stembile, can you share a little bit about when you guys in Korea started hearing about this virus and what were the first steps that your leaders kind of took to make sure that they contained the virus?
Okay, so I remember I came home in January, and like the first couple of cases were being reported in South Korea while I was just like a few days before I was due to return. And by the time I came back, which was like the end of Jan, they would do the routine health check at immigration, and there wasn't like a sense of like there's panic or anything. But I'd say maybe 2 weeks after that, so mid-Feb, like maybe on the 18th, 19th, like cases started coming in Korea, and in the city of Daegu, which is about 45 minutes to an hour from where I stay, there was like this super spreader who spread it amongst like members of her church, and like the suddenly numbers just grew and just grew. And then reports started coming into about my city, and immediately alerts started coming onto our phones, and just telling us that there's been someone who's been infected. This is where they went. So they tracked all the places that these people went.
Oh, wow.
So we would know where they went. And immediately we were told to just stay indoors and not go out. I remember that first weekend I was with some American friends, and they were just like, I want to go home right now.
Yeah.
And everyone was just like in a panic, like overnight, just like that Friday, we got about 8 or 9 alerts on our phones, and they're very dramatic actually. Like your phone just makes a noise and it vibrates like furiously. So that weekend was actually very, very somber. Everyone just immediately stayed home. Like the subway was empty. I was still walking around because I was saying goodbye to some friends that were leaving. They were like their contracts had been up. So immediately, and school was due to open in a couple of weeks. It was pushed back. Kids were told to stay home. Most people were told not to go to work. I still had to. But yeah, so we got, I think the alerts just started coming in immediately. So we're like they were very open in terms of telling us the rates of infections, where people went, and
It was a quick response.
yeah. So wherever people went, then the teams or the health workers would go and disinfect those areas. They'd be closed for a couple of days. But I would say that Koreans are very health conscious anyways, I think, like so I think, and panicky a little, so they were like, we are not going anywhere. They immediately stayed indoors, masks on. Everybody, the whole city was wearing masks. And so I think the citizens as well were very proactive about like protecting themselves, even though we didn't have a strict lockdown period per se.
Yeah. And what you're saying is actually the opposite of what Italians have been doing, right? Miguel, we've seen your people in government shouting at
Yes.
actually stay home. Why were Italians refusing to stay home?
Well, Italian nature is unruly by nature, so we all know some Italians, and we know how we are. Nothing. I was thinking of what Tembile was telling was telling us just now, and things were similar in Italy to a certain extent. The pandemic in Italy started in northern Italy. I remember Temila was talking about January, February, and I remember watching the news, China on the news in February, and seeing all these empty streets, and it gave me the goosebumps, and I said, "Gee, these guys are really living a nightmare, right?" And to be honest, I never thought that this would ever happen in Europe or in Italy where I was living. And then things started getting worse at the end of February in northern Italy. I live in Rome, so right in the center of the boot. Yeah. And eventually one night, I remember it was around the 4th of December, so between the 3rd and the 4th, it was in the middle of the week, the head of the government, the prime minister, he called in the middle of the night the news, basically. And so he came to TV and he called a national shutdown. Basically, he was saying that everybody had to stay indoors. And this led to the unruliness of the Italians. And so what was feared is that the northern Italy is the most productive part of Italy. So most people from the south work in the north, right? And so all these people in the middle of the night, like at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, they all rushed to the train stations to grab a train and come down to the south of Italy. And this was something really bad managed by the government, because this could have led, because it actually didn't, to spreading the disease from the North Italy to the south of Italy. Yeah. But unfortunately, the next morning, everything was sorted out. So just a few people managed to escape from northern Italy. And after that, I have to say that at least in Rome, it is a real lockdown, because streets are empty, just like in China. And I walk around to go throw out the garbage or whatever, and all shops are closed. The only shops that are open are the groceries and supermarkets. Yesterday, I've been to the supermarket and I queued outside for 1 hour, 40 minutes. Then once inside, you find everything. Everything is in the supermarket, but you stay in the queue 2 meters apart from the other. You can only go one person from each family, so it's useless to take your wife or take your kids with you, because only one person is allowed per family. And then inside you find everything, and there's no panic or whatsoever. I see people are rushing for toilet papers around the world. I don't understand why. Here you can find everything. And
all right. Cool. Kutrano, you guys in Denmark are on the opposite side of Italy. And I would like to think that you guys were doing the opposite of the unruly Italians. What was your experience when you started finding out about this virus and that it was affecting the whole world, not just a specific part?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say Denmark is the total opposite in terms of behavior, but I would say that it was quite a swift reaction from the government. I think the first cases were reported in mid-February, but there was still normal activities right up until the lockdown mid-March. I think it was about the 12th of March when they decided that the borders are going to be shut for 2 weeks initially, and now it's up until the 10th of May. But I would say it's been kind of lockdown light, because we're still able to do things like go to the supermarket. Of course, there are people monitoring that you don't get too close to each other, and we're still able to be outdoors. Kids are running around outside, and I go for a run. But you avoid crowded places. There did come a point where the authorities noticed that people are not actually taking this as seriously as they should. Yeah. And like at the beach close to where we live, there are signs saying that please stay 2 meters away from each other, otherwise the police can take action. It was the first time I've seen visible policing basically in this area. So they are monitoring the situation. It's not as stay home, thing is happening, don't go here, don't do that. Shops are closed, of course. Restaurants, anywhere where there's going to be gathering of more than 10 people is just not allowed. Big events are not allowed. People aren't going into offices. We've been working from home since mid-March. And I think it will continue right until mid-May. Schools will start opening next week, they've told us. Primary schools only, so from kindergarten right through to grade 5. Kids will go back to school. I don't know how that's going to pan out in terms of practical, drop-off, pick-up, being with other kids. It will be interesting to see how each school manages it. But I think what they've said is that, the risk of closing borders indefinitely and not conducting business or not opening up to normal business, it's going to be more detrimental than, actually gradually opening up. So you don't want a situation where you have reinfections and you have the opposite effect. So it's going to be a controlled lockdown. That's what they say, but we'll see how it pans out because, nobody has a rule book for this situation.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I think that's the sentiment that's been going around since President Cyril Ramaphosa actually announced the extension on our lockdown, that it is a necessary thing. Nobody knows exactly how this is going to pan out. We're also just watching the rest of the world to see what has worked, what hasn't worked, and what can we apply in South Africa. But I think then the question I need to ask you guys is, having seen what's happening in South Africa, do you guys wish you were back here, or are you okay in the place?
No. In a word, no.
You don't want to come with us.
I honestly, I'm not sure how I would have dealt with like a very strict lockdown, because I do live alone. I must say, like, the first couple of weeks here did feel like a lockdown because lots of things were closed. People just decided to close their businesses like of their own accord. So it just seems very tense out there. Like, people just aren't able to get the things that would give them pleasure in like times like this, like things that would make the situation maybe a little bit easier. Like, so, and I mean, there's argument for why some people can't get those things, but like, I like going out. I don't know, but like, it's necessary to stay indoors, but I don't think I could handle a strict lockdown. Yeah, definitely not. I don't know. I just don't think I don't want to be in SA right now. Yeah.
I think it triggers bad memories, to be honest, because it's pretty much a state of emergency situation. Yeah. And if you've lived through that, then, it just gives you this, this heavy feeling in your stomach. I was actually really scared when they said they're deploying the army. It was like, whoa, okay, that's pretty intense. Why? I know exactly why, but it's it triggers really bad memories. At least in my how I feel about it. It's like,
definitely,
I don't those big army trucks and people walking around with guns, and it's just, that's PTSD,
Yeah.
And that's actually what's been coming up with a lot of older folks, even the ones that are in high risk. To them, it feels like we're being contained again. We're being oppressed again. And I see someone on Twitter said their grandmother got arrested. I don't know how true that is, but maybe we are also unruly and ungovernable at this point. Before I let you guys go, I'm interested in the silver linings of this pandemic. So for me, I've been working out with my girls every single morning since we've been in lockdown. And that's more commitment than I've given to the gym. And I actually I'm paying for a membership there. So do you guys notice any silver linings, anything positive that has come out of this global pandemic? Miguel?
Well, we really have to look for it to find it. Because, I mean, it's really, your heart sinks to see the empty streets, because here it's a really strict lockdown. And this is Easter time. I live right across the Vatican, right in front of St. Peter's. And back in time, it was just crowded with pilgrims for a month before, and nice weather, nice season, full spring here. So it was just packed with people. Now it's the desert outside. The good thing, if I have to find, is that Italy usually is not a united country. It only comes together during the World Soccer. And now we find ourselves singing out of the windows from the balconies and singing together. We wave at each other across the buildings, and people are putting Italian flags outside of the window, which is the first time when it is not during a World Cup, a soccer World Cup. So that's the good thing. Italy finds itself more of a nation. People are uniting. Instead, we don't have people running and sacking supermarkets, and there's no violence episodes. I have to be 100% clear about this. So we're finding ourselves behaved from this point of view, finding ourselves as a nation. We are very bitter towards the European Union because we do not find any kind of aid from the European Union. We do not feel that the European Union has been dealing with this the same way. Italy has been dealing the harsh way with this pandemic right from the beginning. Italy carried out more than 1 million swabs to test its population, 1 million. And we were in a point where we did carry out, I think, 200,000, and France carried out 700. And Germany had carried out 300. And they were saying that they had no problems with the pandemic. So obviously we were testing our population and they weren't. So there was no coordination among the European countries, and we felt we are feeling quite abandoned from the European Union, which is not a problem if only we could then deal with this by ourselves. So I believe, I don't want to speak too much, but I feel like you all remember perhaps watching the Twin Towers. I remember I was watching the Twin Towers burn live. Right, I was studying, doing university. My mom called me and said it was an accident. So I turned on the CNN and I was watching the Twin Towers. So I believe that we are watching the Twin Towers now. So we cannot even figure out what is going to happen. They still haven't collapsed. They're just burning. But the mess the world is going to be in the next few months, we cannot even imagine. That's my personal opinion. I don't want to be too drastic, too negative. But I see here in front of me, there is a 4-star hotel, 8 stores, right? And it's empty, it's locked down. It's been a March, and probably they're talking about opening again after September. So I don't even want to know what the rent of such a place is. Schools have been locked down since March, and they will only open in September, maybe, the government is saying. So pizza stores, restaurants, people are paying for salaries, people are paying mortgages. I don't want to even imagine if I don't think these people are going to open again.
Yeah.
And people are going to go back.
You started with the silver lining, then you went.
No, with a black line. No, with a deep purple. I'm sorry.
But I understand.
Okay, silver lining. United country.
I understand. Yeah, you are united as a country. And to be clear, I work out with my girls via Skype and Zoom. So we're not outside. Grano, silver lining from your end?
I think, this is a reset in ways, and it's been a good time to take stock. And for me, on a personal level, I would say, yes, it's been difficult trying to balance work and having 2 kids running around making noise, and their lives have been turned upside down literally overnight, and they don't understand, and it's hard to explain, and so it's been trying to find that balance. But at the same time, it really has been a privilege to have all 4 of us under the same roof for such a long time, and you get to know people really, really well, like your kids and their interests. I feel like life is usually so rushed, but this has been a slow down, and it's been really fantastic in many ways, tough in many ways, but also really super fantastic to spend time with the family. It's also brought us closer to parents. We're on Skype every single night. My parents-in-law are up in Milano, and my parents down in Johannesburg. We speak every night on Skype, and this wouldn't usually happen because it would be chaotic time. We'd just have come back from work, and then, it's forced us to slow down and really concentrate on the communication part of our relationship. So from that perspective, yeah. But let's see.
Love that connection.
Sorry.
No, I said I love that connection.
For me as well, on a personal level, I would say that in the beginning, because I still had to go to school and the kids were not there, but I kept on thinking how I had been given time. Like I had time, whatever I did with it, I suddenly had time, like whether I needed to rest, whether I needed to pick up a project which I don't need to do or whatever, but like I had time on my hands, which is something that we like is such a valuable commodity, commodity. Yeah. So I just kept on thinking, okay, I have time to do, even if I am at home, I have that time. I've also been a video call initiator instead of avoider. So I take video calls now. I initiate them. I felt, closer connections with friends, especially I've been able to give friends back home like tips because I kind of went through this before that they did. So it was good to just like actually walk with them through it. And also for me, like I was like 2020, I'll be more mindful. And if I was trying to avoid that, the time has forced me to do it. And I've saved money, a lot of money, just staying indoors. So like there's been that silver lining, and also just consciousness, like being conscious of my actions and how they affect other people, and how my hygiene also could affect a whole lot of like a long chain of people, And I hope that people also think about that hygiene aspect when they are going about their lives.
Yeah. That is an awesome note to end this discussion on. Thank you so much, guys, for actually taking time out to share with us your experience of being abroad during this pandemic. I hope that I will be able to see you in real life pretty soon. Hopefully you guys will come here, but maybe I'll come to you. But thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Helen.
It's been a pleasure.
All right.
Thank you, ladies. Be safe, all of you. Take care. Bye. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much to Stembile Gasa, Kutlwano Skosana Richie, and Miguel Bertus for looking out for us on The Watch. I hope that this conversation gives you hope that we'll be able to connect with our brothers and sisters who are abroad pretty soon. My name is Helen Herimbi, and I will see you again tomorrow. Thank you so